Hi there, it's Jeff here with a short video looking at the concept of and the reality of reciprocal tariffs. Well, what are reciprocal import tariffs? The backstory, of course, is the decision by Trump to introduce a sweeping, multinational increase in import tariffs, which take the effective import tariff rate on US imports up from around 3% to 22% effective from April 2025. So a reciprocal tariff refers to a trade policy, protectionist policy, where one country imposes import tariffs on another country's goods in response to or to match, hence reciprocal, the tariffs that country imposes on its own exports. Essentially, it's a tit-for-tat strategy aimed at promoting fairness or equity or pressurising the other country perhaps to lower their tariffs in the process of trade liberalisation. Well, here's the data. We know, of course, that Trump has introduced these tariffs across hundreds of countries, but these are some of the big ones, the largest trading partners. So, for example, a tariff of 20% on European Union goods, 34% extra tariff on China to existing tariffs, 24% Japan, 46% Vietnam, we'll come back to that in a second, and 37% in Thailand, 27% in India. Now, if we think about the share of US imports, we can see that Europe and China together account for 32% of all the goods coming into the United States. And of course, they've attracted high tariffs of 20 and 34% respectively. So reciprocal tariffs are basically used often as leverage in trade negotiations. So they're used to push other countries to reduce their trade barriers. In a way, they're designed to level the playing field. So a country might feel that a country is being unfairly treated in terms of trade. So reciprocal tariffs are a way of, if you like, retaliating. And they're trying to promote fair trade in theory. So if you impose a reciprocal tariff, there is then there's headroom for a mutual lowering of trade barriers by showing that one-sided tariffs won't go unanswered. So you get to the top of the hill, if you like, and then you can come down the hill together by progressively lowering tariffs. And who knows, that might well be one of the aims of the Trump strategy as we head through 2025. What a good example here is China. We know that China has now had a 34% tariff introduced, and it's true that the United States runs a large, significant trade deficit with China, as this chart shows. The blue bit shows the value of US exports to China. The black line, black histogram, shows the value of US imports from China. And you can see that gap is huge and has been growing over the period. Now, here's the famous table that Trump used in his press conference with the heading Reciprocal Tariffs. And on the left-hand side of the country, and then the middle bit, tariffs charged to the USA, and the USA discounted reciprocal tariffs. And it looks as if the United States is charging a tariff of half of the tariffs charged to the United States. Except that's not the case. This data is false and has been demonstrably proved to be the case. Trump's tariffs are not, they are not based on tariffs imposed by the US's trading partners. They are not. So the bits in blue there are falsifiable, and they're clearly erroneous. For example, Trump is levying a 20% tariff on goods imported from the European Union. Don't forget, of course, the UK is now outside the EU. Now, the World Trade Organization have done estimates on trade-weighted tariffs, so they think that the trade-weighted tariff on average on US products entering the European Union is just a tad under 5%. So it is not 39%. It's just under 5%. What Trump has done with his famous formula to calculate the tariff, he's basically taken the value of the trade deficit, not existing trade tariffs. So he's using the trade imbalance as a proxy for the tariff rate, which is, clearly economically illogical, and then divided by the exports to the United States, and they get some sort of figure. So a country with a very large trade surplus with the United States, Vietnam, has been hit with super high import tariffs. As you can see there, Vietnam has been hit with 46%. There's a simple reason, of course, why Vietnam has a trade surplus with the United States. Vietnam is a very poor country, fast growing, but low middle income country. And millions of its citizens can't afford to buy goods from the United States, whereas Vietnam does have pretty strong export performance in exporting manufactured items, including textiles, broadcast equipment, computers, video displays, so on and so forth, nearly 30% of which go to the United States. So Vietnam has a comparative advantage in these products. But Vietnam doesn't have the Vietnamese do not have the per capita incomes to be able to afford exports from the United States. That's the nature of the thing. So Vietnam runs a trade surplus in goods, but a trade deficit in services with the USA. ING have done some analysis of this. So, and this just shows how exposed Vietnam is to this 46% tariff. So for Vietnam, with total exposure to US imports of 12% of their GDP, so over 1/10 of their national output is exposed to tariffs. A 46% tariff rate, assuming an elasticity of demand of 1, would put just under 6% of Vietnam's GDP at risk, assuming that demand for Vietnamese goods falls by 46%. There's goods exported to the United States. So Trump says these are reciprocal tariffs. They are not. Let's be clear about this. The formula they've used is not reciprocal. The formula they've used is based on trade imbalances, and that is not the same as percentage tariffs. And this is worth knowing as we head into these uncertain days and weeks and months. Thanks for joining in. If you've got any comments, please post in the comment section and I'll do my best to reply. Take care. See you soon.